We are live on Facebook. Welcome to all our listeners in the U.S. and around the world. Yes, it's Baseball Outside the Box, the show which interviews baseball's greatest coaching minds who love to challenge the status quo. This show will also be up on YouTube. Check it out, Peter Caliendo, and of course live on Facebook now and on the podcast, baseballoutsidethebox.com. The audio will be there later. So, folks, thanks for joining us. Again, live on Facebook. If you're going to listen on Facebook and you want to ask a question, just type it in the comments section. Listen, one of the hardest things, we all know this, one of the hardest things for any coach in baseball to do is run an effective and efficient, what people call practice, what some people call training. We call it whatever you like. We'll let our guests tell us what's the best name for it. And it's really hard to keep it fun, productive, and get something accomplished because that, and especially at the younger levels, because that's what keeps kids interested in the game is when they run fun practices that actually get them to be a little bit better. So we have a great person with us, fantastic, spoke at the ABCA. He is one of the Dodgers, Los Angeles Dodgers coaches. He's been a manager, coach, pro player also, but now he is the assistant coordinator of skill development. And we are going to talk to Shaun Larkin, my great friend. How you doing, buddy?
Peter, I'm doing great. Thank you again for having me. It's always good to get these conversations going, especially these times we see a familiar face talking baseball. I've been looking forward to this one for a couple of days now. So thank you again.
Well, again, thanks for being on, and you're always a great guest. This is the second time Shaun's been on Baseball Outside the Box, first time on the Skype video and live on Facebook. You know, and it's great because there's a lot of things going on, and I know people can't always see and listen to all the shows. There's so many Zoom shows going on, some great ones. Sometimes you got to pick and choose. What's Shaun Larkin to get educated, continuous education, you know, and I know you got a great educational background. What do you do to keep up and keep sharp?
Yeah, like you mentioned, especially given the times right now, you click on Twitter or Facebook and someone's having something. Yeah. There's a hitting, something, there's a defense, there's a pitching, there's all these mental skills guys putting together different Zoom chats, and there's a lot of stuff out there right now. Me personally, again, you can get swallowed up in all that. I tell you what, my focus and energy right now has really been focused on making sure the players in our organization, the staff members in our organization, and just making sure we are taking care of our in-house first with the Dodgers has been my primary focus. How can we get creative? How do we utilize this time to get something out of it when it's really hard from afar? So a lot of my energy and time is spent on that right now. There has been very little personal development in terms of watching or reading or anything like that. This time of year normally for me is I'm traveling a lot. I'm on the airplane a lot. I'm in the hotels often. And that's where this time of year is usually my information gathering time and my note-taking time, just based on my schedule. But right now, it's been really focused on taking all the information I've been getting over the years and then trying to implement it in a different way for our own guys. Right now, we have over 150, 200 players. We got 75, 80 staff members, and trying to keep that focus on our guys right now, because that too needs us or me the most. My energy needs to go to our people. And then off of that, it's my kids and my wife get my time now. Again, something that they're not used to having me home around this much. So when I have that extra time, I try to give it to them the best I can.
You know what? And unfortunately, we're all going to spoil, especially younger guys like you, going to spoil our families because, it's like my dogs. I'm thinking, my dog now, I'm with him 24 hours a day. He's everywhere. He's coming with me all the time. And when I leave now, he's going to be depressed. I'm going to have to give him some depressant pills. But, it is nice to have, obviously be able to spend time with your family and all that. And I think that's more important, obviously, than anything else. Family comes first, in my opinion. What's interesting is there anything unique that the Dodgers are doing with their players, or even it doesn't have to be unique, but if there's something special that you can share with other coaches that they can do with their players? I know coaches are being creative. They're getting on Zoom. They're trying to do as much as they can. But what's something unique? And also, what is the importance of categories? Because they can be talking about all kinds of stuff to their players, all right? Tell them, do this, do that. But what's kind of a line of things they should be doing. Let's put it that way.
We've tried to keep the theme the same, where we keep it individualized. We make sure we're having an element of fun regardless of what we're doing. We've really put the onus on our managers to really run the clubs that they would have had or potentially will have. Basically what we do, we put rosters together and let the managers and the coaches kind of run their teams like they would this time of year anyways. The coordinator groups kind of interject like we normally would. But the uniqueness really is there really is no secret. You just maintain what has made us so strong, and that's the autonomy, the individualization, the care factor. We've reached out to our players multiple times since this started through multiple mediums. We really made sure that we showed that we cared about our players and our people. And that's something that we didn't lose sight of from Jump Street, is making sure we had a pulse of all of our people, making sure they had what they needed, making sure they were safe, making sure they knew that we had their best interests and any support that they needed through this whole time. We've made sure we do that. So I guess the uniqueness is we didn't lose sight of what's important. That's our people. And we just stayed the track, and it looks different. The Zoom and how you coach remotely is different, of course. And so we're just like anybody else, probably trying to find the best way to do that. Probably, we're not doing anything crazy drills or anything. There's plenty of those out there. But I think it's just making sure we just keep development at the forefront, and it looks differently, of course, but continually just the connection piece, right? Just because we're socially distanced doesn't mean we can't be connected still. And we've really made an emphasis on making sure we are connected with our people. And at this point, it's been strong. And how long this goes, I don't know, but at the end of the day, all you have is that relationship and the bonding and just knowing there's something there when a lot of this stuff has been taken from us. But you can't replace the human connection. We've made sure we've done that.
What's great is this is a great time for players to, get a routine, stay consistent, create great habits. I talk about on every day for about a minute, a tip of the day, things like, eating well, sleeping, just regular things that are going to make you better in general, but make you a better player. Now, I know you, if I remember right on last interview, I remember you get better also because you interact with your wife with knowledge. Tell us about that, because I think that's important to understand that we're always sharing ideas, and your wife's pretty special about this.
Man, she is I can't find the right word to describe how great and amazing she is. With her knowledge base and her experience in behavior, for those who don't already know, she's a board certified behavior specialist, has master's degree in behavior, and it really has a unique perspective on why we behave the way we do. Tie that in with what I do and what I've done, and you realize, man, it's all the same. Performance is behavior. How you go about practice is a behavior. And how many discussions we've had about creating environments and how context matters and how motivations matter from a totally different lens, and why players behave the way they do. And in the coaching world, we always say, this player, he or she is coachable or not based on how they're responding to your interactions, right? And she's really opened up this door of like, well, why is someone behaving the way they do? Well, maybe they're trying to escape or avoid how you coach or the environment you've created, and they're shutting down. And then as coaches, we label that as non-coachable, bad attitude. When reality is just, no, they're not. They're just not responding to how you're doing it in this particular fashion. So, I can't hours of conversations on developing skills and interacting with players and making sure you're the environment creation and understanding context before we jump into a conclusion. So a lot of time. And I have become a much better coach, coordinator, program designer based on the conversations her and I have had. So I am fortunate to have someone in my house every single day to cross-check what I think and what I say. And it's just a really fruitful conversation. So, yeah, I'm lucky and to have her. Again, a little bit was by design to get married until I found the right one, and she is the best. So I've learned a lot. And for the coaches out there who are interested in stuff like that, the behavior is something you should also study. It's not always about the skill and about leadership. The culture books, they're everywhere. If you really start digging in, though, to real behavior and behavior change and start connecting those dots there, it'd be really beneficial.
Well, since you said that, and you have the advantage of, you run a practice, or you see a practice being run, or whatever, skill work, and it quite doesn't, look good, or it does, something somebody said didn't sound right. You could always bounce it off your wife, which is great to see what she thinks, and then
Right.
now, so for our coaches out there, if they're going to get into the behavior aspect, what are some recommendations? Some books, maybe, or some websites to check out?
Yeah, the one that I really got a lot from was, it's called Thinking Like a Behavior Analyst. And really all it is telling you the basics of behavior, the functions of behavior, how to manage it, how to handle it. And this it explains the nuance of behavior. It gives you different contexts in sports, in real life, and all that, but you can always bring it back to the sport context. So that was the one that really, really helped me understand just the basics of Behavior 101. Thinking Like a Behavior Analyst really helped me. And then from there, it's a Google search. There are, I don't like technical books. I don't like, I would rather read something in a little more layman's terms. I tell you what, Atomic Habits, which is a popular one by James Clear, touches on a lot of the behavior aspects that I've learned from my wife, but in simpler terms. So that one was really good. Willpower Doesn't Work. It was another good one by Benjamin P. Hardy. Again, touching on a lot of these aspects that aren't technically defined, but the concepts are really, really good. Just in terms of environment creation. Another one of my very favorites is called The Hoops Whisperer, and it's really about a basketball trainer, and he tells the story how he trains the elite NBA players one-on-one, and how that environment's created, and how to push and how to pull, and understanding the interaction there to where you can expect the most out of your players without turning them off. And again, it's along the same lines of the concepts of technical behavior, in coaching terms that we can really relate to. As I read those types of books, I can always bring it back to that first one I mentioned. It's like, here it is in our language, if you will. So a lot of good stuff out there that's easy reads, that you take what you want and you interject it into your system, But those are some ones I would out of the gate recommend, without getting someone turned on to some book that's loaded with terms and terminology and graphs and all the deep and totally in-depth stuff that's out there. That's easy to find on your own. But for me personally, I get lost in that. So I like the stuff that's a little bit more layman terms, and those are some ones that would really help.
Agree, man. Listen, check out Shaun Larkin at SLarkin04. He's got some great stuff on there. People say a lot, so watch what they do. He's got some environmental design as our greatest responsibility. We're going to talk about some of that stuff, but give a little background with the Dodgers as assistant coordinator of skills development. Skills development, I think some people understand that, but get the in-depth part, the background of what's that all about. What's your main responsibility?
Yeah, so coming in was 2015. I was hired by Gabe Kapler to come in and basically turn practice on its head. How we develop our players, and I was tasked with doing it differently, but with a reason. So that was my responsibility, and I was all fired up, excited, and I got off the phone, accepted a job, and looked at my wife and was like, "Oh my God, what does that even mean?" I'm a baseball traditionalist. I'm the rep after rep. I was a big believer in just doing the reps and the same thing over and over and over again. And here I was with a job that had to really turn that on its head. And that's where it started, taking these deep, deep dives into motor learning, skill acquisition, all these different concepts of from the types of practice, the block, the rem, the variable, skill acquisition theory, ecological dynamics, and the constraints-led approach, and non-linear pedagogy, this perception-action coupling, like focus of attention, internal, external, and feedback, the explicit, implicit. So all these concepts, take them all and now make it relevant to baseball. And then how does that really look on a day-to-day basis? So that is what I dug into about 4 or 5 years ago now, and just really wrote the program or the framework, given all this research and then how it applies to baseball, and without without negating the importance of some tradition too. Like this nice balance of there are certain things in baseball that are there for a reason, they should be kept, and not totally getting away from the value of doing something over and over and over again. But also keeping in mind that we probably should have it be a little bit more representative of the game also. Some challenge and some decision making and some speed variation, and making sure it is individualized. And, do all our BP rounds have to look exactly the same for all the groups? Stuff like that is really where I've been spending the past 4 or 5 years, and then recently got promoted to the assistant field coordinator. And now my hands are in a lot of different stuff now. And really by this point, our coaches and coordinator group are educated and well-versed in practice theory and design based on our framework. And that's where we are now. And now it's just a matter of doing it better than everybody else does.
It's interesting. And folks on Facebook, if you got a question for Shaun, just type it in the comments section and we'll ask that question. It'd be a lot of fun doing that. I'd love to hear what other coaches, what they're thinking. As we talk about making changes, you talked about turning everything on its head. We call it baseball outside the box here simply because we got to think outside the box. But at the same time, you're a coach all of a sudden making a lot of changes. When you went in with those recommendations, I'm sure it wasn't all, hey, this is great, let's do it. You got a lot of, baseball is an old school traditional game. I've been to spring training in the past. I've seen, and I always wondered, boy, aren't they just going through the motion?
Right.
Is this going to really transfer into a ball game? Yes, they're great athletes. They can overcome certain things, but we're not talking about just Major League Baseball. We're talking about young kids. So talk through us that so it can help a coach understand how to make that progression gradually, or you just throw it all at them, like a bucket of, cold water.
Yeah. There was definitely a plan. There was definitely an implementation plan that did span over 3 to 4 years, and how we injected it at the lowest levels first and then progressed it up. And by the time, I think the date was like 2018 or 19, that it would be AAA or big leagues all the way down. And that's what happened. But like you said, you go into these presentations, and I tell you, everyone's like, oh, yeah, this is great. This is awesome. And then you get on the dirt, you get on the field, and you're about to go do it. It's like, wait a second, this is what we do. We hit regular fungos, we throw regular BP. And it was getting over those hurdles. It was for the players and the staff. But once over the time, when it becomes just what you do, and you explain the reasons why, and it was constantly in the front end, constantly explaining why we're doing this, how it looks, what it means. Here's some research. Here's why it doesn't work as well in our environment. But there was a lot, probably more time spent just explaining the why it's important, and how the game's actually played. One of the things I really relied heavily on was this idea of expertise, right? And expertise is more about your ability to adapt to what's happening in the game around you and adjust. That's expertise. It's not about a predetermined motor pattern or a predetermined swing or a predetermined action. Expertise is really the ability to utilize different ways to do things in response to what's happening around you. That's an expert. Having a skill set and then using those skills to execute what's happening in front of you. Be skilled with your skills, right? So a lot of our players, especially professionally, have skills, but that doesn't mean they're skilled. Being able to use those skills in different environments, different types of pitches, different types of ground balls, game situations, the mental skills, of course, right? So all these things, just because you have skills doesn't mean you're skilled. So that's kind of where we landed on it. So the younger coaches, yeah, it's not about going and challenging your 10 to 15-year-old with fastball machines and all this crazy stuff, and there's this high level of failure out of the gate, because all you can do is detract it. That goes back to environment, understanding your player, understanding motivations, understand that there is some success that's needed along the way to keep players motivated. So yeah, it's a balancing act for sure. And again, I always call it the art of coaching. I don't know your players, so if you try to follow my script, it's not going to work for you, because I have our players, and our players have their specific needs, and that looks different top to bottom. So you take these ideas and concepts, which are good, and then you plug them into your system on a needs basis. What does your player need? What does your team need, per their level and per their developmental status or level? So yeah, it's an art. It's the art. But I think understanding all these different concepts and how the game's actually played how can we practice in those environments that reflect that more consistently than not? That's the goal. Now, when and how that happens, I wish I had the magic pill to give you. But I think it starts with awareness and not being afraid to push a little bit more. But when you push your players, you're expecting more out of them, and they're reaching their arm a little bit higher. You're explaining the why. So for every level of challenge that you have them, you got to make sure you have levels of support for them. You're there for them. And explain that on the front end. I think the other thing, I'm getting long-winded here, but one of the things that we've done really well when we sign our players and they come into our mini camp, the day one they're hit in the face with, our practices for the most part are designed for you to fail. They're designed to expose your limitations. It's okay. So when you're not you pass the test, you're signed, we know you're a good player. Now it's about how can we maximize you. So we're not interested as much in practice performance. We're more interested in developing your skills so you can perform in the game when it really matters. And how we do that is by seeing where your limitations are, and that's going to get exposed in our practice settings. That's okay. So we take that pressure off them out of the gate of this idea of being perfect or have to execute everything perfectly in practice. Like, no, we designed this with the intent of it being a little bit ugly sometimes, and we understand that. So leveling the playing field out of the gate. You're not being evaluated based on your practice performance. It's a good place to start.
I love that. And, in the meantime, as you're doing that, prior to that, I should have backed up. You talked about behavior. So you have to understand the behavior prior to even, running this practice. Because if you don't understand, explain to us a way to start to understand the behavior of a player. Is there a training there that you do? Is there something you do with the players?
Well, when you have understanding behavior, it really starts with understanding the motivation of the player, right? So say with high school, and you're a high school coach, and on your team you have, 13 to 15 players, right? Of those 13 to 15 players, they're not all going to have the same motivation. Some don't care about playing Division I college or getting drafted. They just want to play in the team. They want to get a letter. They want to have the experience as a high school baseball player. That's all they really care about. If they win state, maybe. Now, there are some who want to play at the higher level, and they're motivated by getting drafted. They're going to be all in on all this stuff. And there'll be some players who are they want to escape something off the field, so they're just there to be part of a team and all that. So you have to understand all these different motivations before you start driving home your personal motivation of winning and developing players and whatever your motivation as a coach. All these different things that go into how a player or a kid's going to behave. That you have to take the time to understand what the motivation of each one of your players is. Now, you take that, and just because they may be scattered, you can always leverage what you're trying to do within the framework of what their motivations are. So, okay, you want to be part of this team. You don't care about playing down the road. It's okay. I'm going to push you, though, to be on our team. I'm going to push you. But these experiences are going to help you down the road when you become the salesperson you want to be, or the fireman or the policeman, or whatever. The challenges that we're going to give you now, this isn't a baseball field, but it's going to prepare you down the road long term. So you just use what you're doing on the baseball field, the way you're doing it, and frame it differently for down the road potentially. And now maybe all of a sudden you get them over the hump and they start being okay with being challenged or handling failure. That's just an example, but it really starts with understanding the motivations. And once you understand the player's motivations and why they're responding a certain way to you, the function, are they trying to avoid or escape something? Are they trying to get attention? Are they trying to whatever it may be? So say I want to get attention and you're yelling at them and they don't get attention at home and they get picked on at school or something. And every time they don't run hard down to first base, they get attention from you. And it may be bad, but they got attention. And you're like, why is this kid behaving this way? Or why is he late? Well, every time he's late, you give him attention. Or if he's late, you send him home. Well, guess what? He just got to escape or avoid the practice he didn't want to be part of. They kicked him out. Well, now he's got what he wanted. So guess what he's going to do? So this is game. It's complex. Human behavior is so complex, but those are just some little nuggets there that if you understand functions, like why we behave the way we do, and it falls into a couple of different buckets, it helps you manipulate your environment or your conversation strategies accordingly. So one size doesn't fit all. If I take you out of a game, and there's a lot of scouts and your family's there and your friends are watching, I take you out of the game, it may crush you because you wanted to play so bad. You take me out of the game for not running hard or wherever it may be, I may have said, great, I didn't want to play anyways, and it didn't affect me. So understanding those types of things and why players behave the way they do is the starting point. It's understanding motivations and what their function is and why they are behaving that way. And it takes time, and that's what makes it hard. But if you're in this coaching thing and it takes time and it's hard, that's why we do it.
It's interesting you say all that because, a long time ago, working with Mickey on baseball school, we had a lot of young kids. And one of the things I always said was, kids are smart. They got a game plan. They know exactly what they want to do. We got to be 3 steps ahead of them. And we got to think like them and make adjustments. And it's a constant game back and forth. One of the hardest things, you talk about behavior, understanding behavior when somebody fails, because that's going to happen. It's going to happen a lot, unfortunately. It's a game of failure. I don't want to be negative, but it's realistic. So everybody handles failure differently. So talk a little bit about that and the behavior aspect, how you deal with it.
Yeah, so they do. And again, this goes back to the function. So say a kid strikes out or they're getting lit up as a pitcher, or they make an error and it's the hands up, they throw the helmet, they just quit, right? So that function potentially is them trying to escape or avoid what just happened. I'm escaping this, so I'm going to do something else now to escape what just happened. Does it make them a bad person, bad kid, bad make? No. He's understanding they're just trying to avoid the embarrassment or whatever that may be. Maybe they are trying to gain attention. They're attention seeking to take your attention away from what just happened. And now you're putting it on them, and hoping that the coach or their teammates forgot that you just struck out. Now all the focus is on you throwing your helmet, and they're now just getting your attention or shifting your attention away from what just happened, right? So those functions. Or maybe they're trying to gain access to not play the game. So understanding their functions of why they're behaving a certain way, again, will give you some insights of how they're handling failure. So maybe it is every time they strike out or something, you go as a coach, they pout and they're whining or whatever they're doing. Like, oh, it's okay, don't worry about it. The attention they were seeking, they just got. So yes, our good intentions as coaches or parents, or we're trying to help them to get them through that, try to build them up. Well, all we're really doing is every time they pout and throw and respond negatively to an adverse event, we give them the attention they want. So maybe we don't give that attention. Maybe we do something else. Maybe we avoid it and ignore it. But we got to understand, when we do those things, when the behavior happens that we want, we have to acknowledge it. So maybe a player strikes out or makes an error and they respond better now. We got to acknowledge the fact that they did. Now we give them the attention to what we want, and guess what's going to happen? They're gaining the attention, but they're getting the behavior that we want. So they don't throw their stuff. They're a good teammate. Where we give them attention for it, pretty good chance next time they're going to keep doing it because they're looking for that attention again. So if we understand they're attention seekers, we got to take it and give it when we want the behavior to happen or not happen. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And you're going to have, and that's probably the hardest thing. That is to read the behavior, understand it, and then have something in your toolbox to be able to counteract it so it's a positive thing. And that's not easy. Take us through a couple other scenarios, maybe even another scenario. You talked about, that was hitting, I think, or another scenario that can happen because you even have players that are sitting on the bench. There's behavior there. Good, bad, and different. How do you handle that part?
Yeah, I mean, so that's potentially gaining access or not gaining access to something. We'll use the hitter one again. So we talk about punishments and reinforcements too, right? So you're either taking something away or you're adding something. So again, I get the hitter one too, and again, understanding the situation, understanding context. Does this player, every time he strikes out have a fit, or is it only when there's runners in scoring position and the game's on the line that you really start to see these things? So understanding, is it every time or is it certain situations? So now you're prepped. Like, okay, bases loaded, 2 outs, or there's a tying run at second base, or the winning run's at third, and particularly, Johnny's up again. I know what's about to happen. If he punches out or he gets out, I know what kind of behavior I'm going to get. It's different than if it's a second inning and he's up and there's no one on base and the at-bat's not as high profile. Behavior may be different after he strikes out. So understanding the context again helps you get ahead of it, like you said.
Yeah.
You know what's going to happen, but you got to be aware of it. You got to be cognizant of your players and recognizing when things are happening. So it's not you don't respond the same way to every single one, right? Otherwise, you don't get anywhere. Behavior doesn't change. The players on the bench, we were preaching, be a good teammate, but you're not playing. Like, well, it's great. You can only say that so many times. Only how many times you frame it. And again, though, it's exposed. If a player isn't playing, they're bummed out, and they're at the end of the bench, they're pouting. What they're trying to do is gain access to the game. They're just doing it the wrong way. They're trying to get the attention of you. Hey, look at me down here pouting and crying. I want your attention. I'm trying to get in. I want to play. Like, yeah, that's just the only way they know how to go about expressing themselves.
Sure.
They want to play. Just like if we send players to a lower level than they want to go, we don't expect them to be happy. Like, we kind of don't mind them being upset. Like, good. I'm glad you're upset that you're not going to the level that you want to go to. But then it goes back then to making sure you built that relationship, explaining, hey, you want to play? I understand you want to play, but here's why you're not playing. You're not playing because you're not trying to practice on time. You're not playing because your skill set's not good enough. Maybe you should get some more extra work in. And you start going on a list of why. Maybe you mitigate the behavior problem out of the gate. But again, understanding what they're pouting about, what the issue is. Now, this all sounds negative. Getting access to playing time and all that too is manifested through players who show up on time, who do play hard, who do all the extra work. That's just another way of gaining access. That's the positive side of it, though. That's the one we all like, right? But their function is to gain access to a starting lineup or to make a team. How are they going to do that? Well, they're going to do everything we ask them to do, right? And that's their behavior pattern. There's a lot of stuff there. There's a lot of stuff to unpack and to talk about. But those are some basic ideas there that are to sift through for sure.
Great stuff, Shaun. Let me tell you, give a shout out to my good friend and one of the best in the business, MLB Baseball's Jeff Crochelle, travels around the world, athletic development. Check it out, crushperformance.com, his podcast, outstanding. No doubt one of the best in the business. The other, and it's interesting, he says, great stuff, guys, love this stuff, really good perspective. And a couple comments, even Don Freeman, ABCA Hall of Fame coach, national team coach, gold medal coach with USA Baseball's 18U. He says, player, and this was interesting what Don said, because I remember going from Mickey Young Baseball School, then, with younger players, then going to USA Baseball with some talented players, and then going to independent ball my very first time with AA, AAA guys, and I was scared to go to that AA, to the independent levels, because I thought, man, these are different guys. Well, Don says, and I agree with him, players at all levels are similar. Buck Showalter told me pro players are just bigger kids. And that's exactly what I found, is they're no different than young kids. So talk about that a little bit, as far as, because we all think, an 8-year-old is different than a big leaguer. Well, yeah, different maybe in some ways, but they still make some mistakes.
Man, that is one of the best. That's a great point from coach there and from yourself. For some reason, we think the higher a player goes, the less they need to be coached, or the less they need to be held accountable, or the less they need to be pushed. That can be further from the truth. In fact, I just read something recently. I forgot that, of course, I'm terrible at citing where I got it. But it really resonated with me, that the fact that when you have like a superstar athlete or the best player on the team, there comes a point where they get sick of hearing how good they are, and they need someone that's going to tell them how not good they are in certain areas. And those are the ones they keep around. They start pushing away the people who tell me how good I am. Like, that's not making me any better. Like, I know I'm good. Like, telling Mike Trout he's good. Well, duh. Like I have hardware in my living room to show me that. Where do I need to get good? Like, where do I need to get better at? Someone please expose me, because those guys got to that level because they pushed themselves to make sure they're better than everybody else. And the ones that the coaches who aren't afraid to like jab a little bit more. Now, time and a place, when to do it, timing, context, who is in front of matters. I'm not going to take Tony Bellinger in front of a big giant room and embarrass him. But I may say the exact same thing alone with him because it's going to resonate more. That's where the feel comes into play. When you say things and how you coach and when you coach matters, but not the actual what you're coaching doesn't. You can still push players. But that's a great point. They are big kids. They still want to get better. We all want to get coached. Major league players want to be coached, and it's true. But we do fall into traps. Best player in your high school team. Do you not coach him because he's the best player or she's the best player now? No, that's the one you coach harder, because if you're coaching them hard, the rest of the team sees, wow, he's coaching or she's coaching that player that hard. Man, okay, we're all in the team together. So that's very, very thing. Coaching behavior and self-awareness as a coach is just as important as understanding player behavior. How are you behaving? What ticks you off? Well, how do you respond to adverse situations? Are you arguing with the umpires and you throw your stuff on your player mixing error, but then you get mad when a player throws their equipment when they strike out? Wait a second. You just modeled that behavior.
Yeah.
So understand your own personal behavior and how you go about things as a coach goes a long way too. Because I think the most important way to change it, or modeling behavior, is a powerful thing. As a coach, you're always the model. They're always looking at you. Remember when I managed, you've probably experienced this too as a manager and a coach. Something happens in a game. Bad call by an umpire. A bad play by your team on defense, or a player strikes out. And you can feel the whole dugout go, and look at you. What's coach going to do? What's the manager going to do? How are we supposed to respond to this right now? And in those moments is when you lose or win your teams and your players consistently. So it's being aware of that type of stuff goes a long way too.
A shout out, I got to give it to these guys because, these are guys that I just mentioned, that are constant learners, but they're some of the best in the world. That's why I put it on the podcast and on Facebook Live. I mean, here we go. We got Ryan Harrison from, Slow the Game Down, which is one of the best vision people in the world. Him and his dad, rest in peace, great guy, unbelievable family. You got Anthony Iapozzi, the big league hitting coach for the Chicago Cubs, on listening. Because these guys understand there's always something you're going to learn, and that little edge. I got to throw this in there because we talk about the young kids and the big leaguers. Got a good friend of mine, Ken McCudden. We grew up since we were 8 years old, 9 years old. Make a long story short, he's an NHL coach now. I didn't play professional hockey or anything. And when hockey went on strike, the Blackhawks, specifically Jonathan Toews, called him. He didn't know him. And Kenny was a skill development coach, but obviously Toews knew of him. And he called him and he asked him if he'd run practice for the Hawks because, the coaches and managers couldn't do that. Right. And so he did for 6 weeks. Now, there's a guy who never played in the NHL.
Right.
After practice, Toews and another guy said to him, this is one of the most funnest practices that I have ever been involved in. Why? Because it was energetic. It was constantly changing. It was different. It was reacting to mistakes, reacting to different things that you react in the game. So talk about how important the fun aspect is, but also the changing it all up a little bit. And why? Not just to change it up, but why?
Man, there's so much there.
Yeah, a lot.
It's okay. Yeah. So one of the things that I think about often, and again, we say, our team or our players are just going through the motions. Now, is that a function of them, or is that a reflection of how my practice is designed? If they're just going through the motions, not engaged, I personally take that that's my fault. They're not engaged. I'm doing something wrong that is just not hitting with them. So I do think if you're able to individualize as much as you possibly can. So now it's about you, or it's about you group of players that for a fact that this practice is designed to get me or help me get better, that automatically they're in. Now, if they're part of that process of understanding what they need to get better at, and they're part of the practice plan for them, it's individualized. Now they're part of it. They're fully invested in it. it makes it like, wow, we're in this thing together. That's part of it. The other part is, making it engaging, making it bounce. No one wants to sit and do the exact same thing for 30, 40 minutes. Not only that's the same thing, but also then you're standing there around watching 4, 5, 6 other guys go. You're standing around doing nothing. How can we keep our players, especially our younger players, moving? Keep them moving. Keep stations are the best, quick hitters. So one, it keeps them engaged. It keeps them moving. But two, that's a skill acquisition, motor learning thing. Constantly moving, from skill to skill to skill to skill. As you're changing, you have no time to think, but now you just got to adapt to what's happening. That's the game. You don't in a game, you don't hit for 5 minutes and you take some rips and then you go take ground balls you know are coming to you. That's not the game. You go through your at bat. It could be 7 pitches. It could be 1 pitch. So why don't we practice that way? And then, by the way, you have to go play defense. The ball may or not be hit to you. And then you go base run. And then, how can we do similar activities like that to the younger levels? But the guys who have the most fun, you want your players to go, wow, it's already over? No, let's go. Let's keep going. Just because of the fact that you've done such a good job of creating an environment for drill sets to where it bounces every 3 to 4 minutes. Boom, 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 boom. You hit every aspect. And the competition, players like to compete. They like to see who's the winner, who's the loser. Like little kids, they like competing. Now, how you frame that and how you frame winners and losers, the younger you go, may be different. But I know for our guys, you throw a competition on the line, it is on. You can guarantee, I don't care if we have 100 guys in the field at one time, if there's a competition or something on the line, it's on. So how do you find a way to individualize, have some sort of competition, and then track it consistently? That's where the magic is. That's the magic potion, right? Because I know if you and I, Peter, if you had a basketball hoop in your garage there, in your driveway, we're out there, hey, let's just shoot some hoops, and we kind of shoot around the driveway. How long do you think it comes before either I or you say, let's play some horse?
Absolutely.
And horse turns into, let's play some one-on-one. Like,
absolutely.
You want to, okay, this is fun, but let's take this to another level because I need to know where I really stand. And this may lead to a whole other thing, but that's a good definition for me for what competition is, or what's it mean to be competitive. And that's being willing to be tested and willing to be challenged to see where you're at. That's being competitive. I'm willing to put myself on the line, and you might beat me, but I'm competitive to see where do I stand, where do I rank with who I'm against right now. That's being competitive, is the willingness to be challenged. And if we can create environments to practice competition, to practice getting over, getting beat, and practice handling failures, those things, just like any other skill, will get better over time. If you practice competing and you practice getting past losing, also getting past winning, handling success is just as hard as handling failure. So how can we interject all this type of stuff in a practice setting? I really think is the magic, and that's where, like you said, that's where the engagement really happens.
Ryan Harrison has a comment I'm going to mention in a minute. Before we do, I think it's a very good comment, but I want to mention this. You talk about competition. Competition doesn't necessarily always have to be against somebody. It could be internal also.
Yeah.
Talk about that.
Yeah, 100%. I was just talking to Cindy Brislow, she's 30-year coach, softball coach, Team USA, I think Team China, some other teams in the Olympics, been around for a long time. And she made the point about the Olympic softball team, where a lot of the time it was individual players on their own time, doing their own thing, practicing by themselves, and they all come together to form this Olympic team, and they go play, and they utilize their individual skills and go compete and beat the other teams. But that, like you said, the internal, I'm competing against myself to see how good I can get. There's no opponent. The opponent is me. And the opponent is how is that bar? Where is my ceiling and breaking through that? And that is the ultimate challenge. And if you can reframe competition in that way also, that's where the ownership comes into play with the player. The player's only going to get as good as they want to get on their own time. That the practice setting you have for the hour or two, that's going to be good. Where players really make the biggest jumps that I personally have seen is when they're on their own. What they're taking from the instruction or the environment you create, and they go on their own and they challenge themselves, and they come back to the coach and, hey, coach, man, I was doing this, that, and the other. Like, I felt this. What do you think? Or what you said, like, I wasn't really feeling it, but I came up with this idea on my swing, or this idea on my delivery, or this pre-pitch mechanism. What do you think? That's where the magic happens on their own, that internal drive or that internal competition. How good can I be for me? I don't care how good Peter is. I want to know how good I can be. The best version of me, what's that look like? That will constantly push players to get to the next stages also. So that's a great point.
You know, and I'm thinking as you're saying that, because I'm trying to focus a little bit on the younger groups for our younger coaches. I mean, simple things like, you know, guys do hit off a tee. You know, some guys like it, some guys don't. That's fine. You know, but if I just hit 5 baseballs and that's all I do, like I don't challenge myself. Can I hit 5 line drives? You know, if I get 2, can I hit 3 the next time? Those are internal challenges to keep you interested and also to keep you motivated and have, like you said, have fun at it.
Of course. I mean, the tee's gotten a bad rap over the past couple of years, right? I mean,
that's why I just bring it up because I know
I love it. Like,
different things.
The tee doesn't, to me, the tee doesn't lie. Like, say you smoke 5 line drops from the back net. Okay, great. Okay, now move that thing inside a little bit more and do the exact same thing. And now move it outside and deeper, do the exact same thing. Move it out front, do the exact same thing. Play horse in the cages off your tee.
Yeah.
That's hitting. Barrel manipulation, situational hitting, that is playing baseball. It's not about thigh high, let my thing rip and ghetto hack it. That's not baseball. Baseball is, you know, barrel accurate as a hitter, barrel accuracy, controlling where the ball's going to an extent, understanding game situation. That is challenging yourself off a tee. Are you going to become a better pitch recognizer from hitting off a tee? Probably not. But you can learn how to bring the barrel to the ball in different locations and see what happens when you do certain things with your body. So you can't tell me a tee is invaluable. It just depends on what you're trying to accomplish. Everything is valuable if you set the appropriate goal, right? Now, anything is pointless if the appropriate goal or purpose isn't set either. Just because you have a machine going or a live BP setting going doesn't mean it's valuable if your goal and purpose isn't right. So just depend. You have to define what you're doing and why you're doing it. That's where the magic will happen. You tell me Tiger Woods can't go out and just nail his 7-iron wherever he wants, whenever he wants off a driving range? He can. And there's value to that.
Yes.
And there's also value to hitting around a tree when you need to too. But there's something to be said about doing something over and over and over again that the best in any sport can do. That's just the bottom line. They're able to dominate the fundamental every single time. Now you add the other aspect of gameplay, but there's value to all this stuff. There's a place for it all, and understanding where you are in that place and how you define it depends on where you're at. Like, it changes.
Love it, love it, love it, love it. Listen, everybody listen live on Facebook. You got any questions, please ask. Here, I got to give this example. This is one of the best guys in the business, one of the smartest. He's a big league coach. He's been a top college coach. He's been the Olympic coach. He's been the Israeli national team coach. Jerry Weinstein on the show listening.
Oh, man, he's great. Jerry, how you doing now? Good. What a stud he is.
But just to give you an example, I mean, you know, sometimes you may only spend 10 minutes because that's all you got, but those 10 minutes could last, you could learn something right away that can take you to another level. Listen, I want to get to Ryan, and I want to thank, by the way, welcome Ryan Harrison, Iapozi, Harrison, Weinstein, all ISG coaches who have traveled around the world for us, and we really appreciate ISG Baseball educating coaches worldwide. These guys are all just do it because they love giving back to coaches. I want to go to Ryan Harrison. He said, I love the behavior stuff, Shaun. Most coaches want to focus on the fix and not understand the why. The other thing, and you could address that too, but the other area I want to ask, because I've had this happen, and I'm sure it's happened to coaches in the past. You've got a real good player and you're working with him, or you're trying to tell him something or suggest something. Well, he's not listening, or he's not, he disagrees. How do you, because it's going to happen. I mean, he's the big guy on the team, right? Maybe he doesn't agree that he needs to do that. It could be in any area. How do you deal with that situation?
The one thing I have learned, sometimes the hard way, and again, you guys have the names you just listed off, yourself included, you guys have forgotten more about the game and everything that I'll ever know. So my short snippet here as a coach and a player and all the stuff I've studied, the one thing I've really learned, the most important, is how to ask questions. And as coaches, we're trying to help so much. We want to jump in the action. We want to tell them what to do or suggest what we think is the best without asking questions on what are you trying to do? How do you think that's helping you? What do you think could be better? What you're doing right now, is that the most efficient way to do it? Is that the goal you're trying to accomplish? Like, asking more questions all of a sudden involves them in the process. Anytime you're told what to do, defense. And then especially the better the player, the bigger the ego.
Yes, the better players, especially.
Defense will go, wait, no, I'm the best one here. You're telling me what to do? Who are you? Old man. You know what I mean? Like, who are you? What did you do? But you start asking questions. Asking questions is a couple of things. One, it makes you vulnerable, and it shows that you don't have all the answers, which all of a sudden we're more relatable now, right? So if I can ask questions, it gives off the impression that I don't really know potentially. And I care about what you have to say also. When we just jump into telling people what to do, we negate what they think, we negate what they feel, and all of a sudden I'm the master. That's not necessarily the case. So asking questions that lead around back to the point that you're trying to make, I think has been the most powerful thing I've learned. And just from observing other coaches and watching interactions, has been the most powerful thing too. Like the coaches or coordinators, whoever I'm watching and observing the interaction, the coaches are able to ask the questions that involve the player. It is absolute magic what happens in that setting. On the flip side, coaches and whoever's in there telling, and you can see immediately players go blank and they're over it. And you might as well not even go to the next stage of this practice or drill or whatever it is, because they're done. They leave, they're pissed off, and it's not a good thing. So, again, asking questions goes a long way. And asking questions and genuinely listen to the answer. Like, don't just ask a question to try to get to your point. Ask a question because you really need to know what they're thinking, feeling, or trying to do, because that's going to help you with the next question that leads you back around. But it's asking questions for the right reasons because you care, not asking questions in a demeaning way or I'm asking you a question to prove my point. That's a whole different conversation there too. But that's how I would navigate that. I've learned that along the way. Like, hey, what do you got? Like, what do you think? Players will ask me, what should I have done there? I don't know, man. Like, what do you think you should have done? As an infielder, say, infielder on a slow roller play, hey, Larkin, do you think I should have come and got that ball or stayed back? Like, hey, look, what do you think? Because you're seeing the ball come towards you. I'm seeing it go away from me. It's a different perception. What did you see? What did you feel? What do you think you could have done differently? And all of a sudden, they've answered their own question. All I do was ask questions. I didn't answer them, other than just asking questions. So those are the types of things that have really helped me. I mean, we're talking elite level infielders who are now big leaguers that weren't when we had them. Those were the conversations. Hey, how do you guys do this? We just stay out of their way. We ask questions and let them do their thing in a way, right? So, and I think
that for the better of the game, I think that's really changing a lot. A lot of coaches are starting to ask questions. And I remember asking questions, and you said, you got to listen to the answer, but yet I was already thinking of the answer for him before, so I asked the question. I looked like I was listening, but I already had another answer for him, So, yeah, that's definitely a huge, huge mistake. And what a great way to answer that. I want to give a shout out to Nolan Dietrich, another young coach that, he's on all over. He's on Zoom talks. He listens to everything. He said, great point. The best improvement comes when they work without us, and then we have discussions with them about their feel and their thoughts. I thought that's awesome. Awesome comment.
That's a really good point. It sounds like Coach Dietrich there. I'm hoping that's the point of like the ABCA conferences and all the Zoom calls and all the really good tweets that are happening. Like, it feels like the coaching community is really, really, really coming around to that concept. There is no master coach. The master coach is the one who's able to ask questions, listen the right way, and create an individual environment. That's the master coach. It's not about who knows the swing the best or the mechanic the best. It's how are you best equipped to create an environment for the player to bloom. So great point by Coach Dietrich. That's cool.
It sounds like this episode would be great, and we lost. We'll be right back on Facebook. Sorry, folks, little glitch in Facebook right there. It happens technology-wise. Might be with the space, but we're going to continue. It sounds like, and unfortunately, we lost Facebook because of memory. It looks like, but we'll be all right. We'll continue. We'll have it on YouTube, and we'll have it on audio. But it also sounds like that, when it comes to parenting, I mean, this is almost like a parenting. It's no different. I mean, we learn a lot, just if you're a parent on this show, you don't even have to be a baseball person.
Yeah. Oh man, that's a whole nother.
Yeah, we don't have to get into.
But it's the same concept, right? It's the exact same concept. And again, something I heard the other day was a good point. And we always say we're enabling our kids. We enable by carrying their bags, by giving them the answers, by protecting them from failure. We're enabling. Someone reframed it to me a couple days ago, and it was like, no, we're actually enabling ourselves, and we're disabling our players and our kids. We're disabling their ability to make decisions. We're disabling their ability to problem solve. We're disabling them of their abilities to navigate the world. And I thought that was a really good way to frame it. It's not about we're not enabling anything by doing things for them. We're disarming them at all these opportunities to have them become elite problem solvers. And that's all an athlete is a problem solver. And then you go through life, and Peter, all we're trying to do to survive most of the time is we solve problems. So yeah, all these are parallel with parenting and being a parent of an athlete, and it's very challenging because we all want the best for our kids. I have a 3.5, almost 4-year-old, and almost a 2-year-old, and 2 more coming, and I want the best for them. Now I get bummed sometimes. My little guy's swinging in the backyard, he swings and misses. It's like, oh, he smashes them, and I'm like, yeah, there you go, buddy. All I'm doing is reinforcing, like, if you hit it, it's good. If you swing and miss, that's bad. Inadvertently, because it's just fun to watch him have fun. So I flipped it, and no matter what swing he takes, he's like, hey, buddy, good swing. All right, let's go again.
So if he misses 2-3 balls in a row, then what do you say?
Get rips. Get rips, buddy. Or I'll say, 2 strikes. I'm going to get you out. Who's going to win?
Challenge.
And if he swings and misses, I say, Daddy won this time. He's like, oh, man, let's do it again. Okay. And then he smashes one, and he wins that time. So we're teaching. Sometimes you always lose. Sometimes you lose. Sometimes you win. This is balance, right? So, I check myself all the time. Again, it just goes back to awareness. I'm just more aware because I talk about it so much. That's all.
Shaun, and that reminds me because what you're teaching there long term, he's learning how to deal with the failure too a little bit, because it's not easy to deal with that failure aspect. We're coming. Listen, you've been great. This is awesome. We're coming down to the end soon here, but I want to ask you, Shaun Larkin, if he's running a practice or he's organizing a practice, what's some guidelines? Because obviously you sit down and you write down your practice or figure out what you're going to do. What's some guidelines for coaches to make sure that they do it, that they organize it well?
Yeah, it's again depending on the age group and age level.
Sure.
I do think there is you got to develop or designate time for foundational principles. What are foundational making routine plays, foundational type drills on the offensive side, staying on the ground, bat paths. I mean, foundational principles are most important. Again, one of our guys says it really well. Principles are few, methods are many. So it's not about how many methods you can come up with. It's what hammer principles that are fundamentally sound. So, and especially the lower levels. So hammering the foundational principles at some point, probably early on in your practice, is a good place to start. Playing catch, isolation drills. Foundational principles set the tone for the day. And then we move on to, again, depending, decision making. How many ways how we can challenge our guys to make some decisions, whether it's BP, whether it's, hey, one swing rounds, 3 pitch rounds instead of 5 swings every time. Making decisions, challenging our guys on ground balls. Where are you going to throw the ball to? What base? Maybe it's first and third, 1 out. We're in a halfway depth and hit random ground balls. Like, are you going to go home? Are you going to turn over play? Challenging making decisions. And those go a long ways. Maybe it's base running drills. And we do base running drills. Hey, ball in the gap, but no one even hit the ball. Like you're imagining. No, if you're having base running drills, do it during batting practice and have guys making decisions on real hit balls. Speed variation. Again, this is with BP. Can we mix in some maybe just spin breaking balls, or just mess with your timing of a windup to a stretch to a slide set, changing speeds with hitters, whether it's at the actual pitch or the actual delivery of the pitch. Speed variation, that's how the game's played. Again, ground balls, obviously. Maybe during cuts and relays, and you have base runners doing it. And, I've seen it a million times. Every hitter or every base runner is at home plate. Coach puts the ball in the gap, and they start at home plate. And it's kind of like the same speed runners. Well, hey, let's have some guys start halfway between home and first. That immediately speeds up that's a fast runner. We got to get it going differently now. Or have a guy start beyond home plate. That's a slower runner now.
Right.
So variation on different decisions, and then that's decision making. So now you've hit a couple of them, right? How about some sort of stressor or consequence? Winner or loser, ball, strike, out, safe. How many times can we have opportunities for guys to feel or players feel stress or a consequence? Again, that's how the game's played. There's a winner and there's a loser. Someone's going to say yes. Again, competitions always settle out. That settles the score, post the results, and have it constantly going. I think that the accessibility to the next one is big now. The technology or some sort of tracking or feedback, knowing where you are from where you started. So how do you know if you're getting any better if you're not tracking it somewhere, using some sort of technology to do it? Knowing, so you're tracking your progress, tracking what drills you're doing, what's working, what's not working, so you don't just get fallen into these patterns of doing the same thing over and over and over again. Have some sort of tracking or technology. And I think the most important one is the best we possibly can individualize the practice for your group of players, for individual players, for small groups of players. So again, an example of this would be, you have four groups of BP, and maybe group one is, man, these guys really struggle with the fastball for whatever reason. So these 2 or 3, 4 players are going to be fastball machine. Group 2, this is a different type of group. They're having a hard time hitting the breaking ball. So group 2 is going to hit breaking balls today. Group 3 is going to hit a mix, fastball and breaking ball. Group 4, you guys just need to feel good because you're struggling for whatever reason. You're going to do traditional BP. You know what? And just 5 rounds of 5 and just blast balls today. But that's individualized for that group. And maybe a group, again, another day is, man, this group, you guys for some reason are not real good at situational hitting. This group, your rounds today, every other group's doing rounds of 4 or 5. Yes, you guys, you're all situational for you, for your development, for you right now, because this is where you're at currently. So individualizing the best we possibly can, as consistently as we can. Are your shortstops doing the same ground ball work as your third baseman? Why? And then within that, are all your third basemen doing the exact same drills or getting the exact same ground balls? Maybe one guy really struggles with pop reads, and your other third baseman has a trouble with angles. Why are they doing the same drills?
Yeah.
So
great
stuff
stuff
like that. And again, it's hard. It takes time. But if you're a good coach, the best coaches I've ever seen or been around spend hours on the practice plan and design, or the 1 or 2 hours that are actually out there. They spend 5 or 10 designing it. And that's what being a coach is about.
You're so on spot. That is some great stuff for our coaches. Hope you took a lot of notes, man, because I know I did. And it's interesting because you listen to top speakers who speak all around the world for big time money. They'll tell you the same thing. It's all preparation. They spend months on a 45-minute talk, right?
Yep.
So it's all preparation. Now, this might be a good way to end it, and then we'll anything else you have at the end that you want to mention that is important to coaches that we may have missed. But as it comes to the game, we're getting closer and closer. We're practicing getting to the game. I just wrote 3 notes down just to see if I'm on track here. 3 of the seem to be 3 of the most important things to make sure prior, a month before the season starts or whatever that plan is 1, the decision making, 2, dealing with failure, and 3, game speed. What did I miss?
That's the game. So as fast as we can get to that stage, those are it. And, I would add handling success too.
And you took the other side. Yeah. See, handling success, I think would,
because that's the trap. You're going so good.
Yeah, remind me.
So good, all of a sudden you stop practicing because you think you're sweet. Like, no, handling success is just as important as handling failure.
So if you have a guy who thinks he's too good, you challenge him more. What else?
And then you get to a point, right? The baseball game, they're going to fail because it's inherent. Like, how you define failure, that's a whole conversation as well. But I think the three you nailed, if you live in those three lanes in your practice and your settings are somewhere within the day revolve around those three things, you're going to hit a lot of stuff. Because if you are doing foundational principle work, depending on your skill level, you're going to experience failure. So you got to handle it, right? It doesn't matter if it's the most simple drill, most complex or challenging drill. There's going to probably be some failure in there, depending on your skill level. Decision making, again, do I go backhand or I go forehand? What do I do? Do I swing? Do I take? Like, decision making is huge, regardless of what that looks like. And the game, that's well, we're lucky in professional baseball. We play every night. If we can define the minor league games as practice games, we're practicing game like every night, right?
Sure.
We don't get that experience at the amateur levels. So how often can you make it? And what's game like mean? Does that mean pitch characteristic? Does that mean an intensity? Does that mean competition? Like, again, defining game like can be challenging also, but I think it all goes back to competition,
Well, let me ask you one more thing as I think here, because if you're running a practice game, let's say you're playing a practice game with your own players possibly, and what's a good way? Something happens that's incorrect. It could be a bunt situation. It could be a cutoff and relay. It could be all kinds of stuff. What's a good way to make that correction?
I know. And this is where I think it depends on what you value as your program as a coach. I mean, I've seen some coaches stop practice to make the point right now because it's so important to them for whatever reason. And I think the stuff you acknowledge the most is what you're saying is most important, right? So for whatever reason you think this bunt play is that important to your success of your team, then you stop it as every opportunity you possibly can to make the point. This is important, right? Whatever you do the most of becomes the most important thing to your players.
Mm-hmm.
This is the bottom line. So if you spend the most of your practice playing catch, guess what your players think is most important? Playing catch. Okay. If you just skip through that, then you can't get mad that they're making throwing errors in the game because you've not made that important. So how you coach, or it's just based on what you think is the most important, and then whatever you think that is for your team to help you win or help you develop, you just make the point as often as clear and as loud as you possibly can. Because the more you say something, that's what becomes important, right? So that would be my thing. If you think it's that important, every opportunity you get, stop the game, because the game isn't as important as what I'm trying to point out right now. If I lose an inning on this practice game because I spent too much time talking about this play, so what? This play is more important than that last inning.
Yeah.
And that's the key. Not being afraid. The best practice plan is the one that's able to adjust and maneuver based on what's happening. If you get so tied up on, I only got 20 minutes for this, I only got 10 minutes for that, I only got 20 minutes for that, all of a sudden you're checking boxes and you didn't really get at anything. But if for some reason the front of my practice didn't go the way I wanted it to, for whatever reason, and that had to go an extra 5 or 10, good. Get that right first, and then you go to the next thing. I do think the trap is box checking because my practice plan said this, and this. We got to keep moving. Well, what if that wasn't right? Now you're sped up for the next one, and you're probably still upset that the first one didn't go right. So your response to the next section of the practice is going to be bad because you're still upset, hung up on the first part. And here we go. And next thing, and the final thing that happens is, I've seen this happen all the time. We wipe out 30 minutes of practice because we say everyone to the line, let's go run.
Yes.
And now your whole practice is gone because you're so mad it didn't go as planned, and now we wasted the whole day, right?
Well, it brings back some memories, let me tell you.
I love those sides of it.
Absolutely. Hey, close us off, man. Take us home with the final comments.
You know what? I tell you what. Something I've been hung up now for the past probably month because of our situation. But players and coaches alike, coaches especially, taking the time to redefine your practice or your coaching philosophy. Why do you do what you do? Especially now. We define ourselves as coaches, and by coaching, we are in the dirt, or we're making practice plans, or we're coaching, interacting with players, and right now it's taken away from us. And it's like, man, if there's no players to coach, no plan to design, I'm not really a coach, right? So redefining and reconnecting with your coaching philosophy, and why are you a coach? Defining why, because that really drives your interaction with your players. Really getting back down to the crux of why are you doing what you're doing. I've heard one the other day, coach said, my purpose is I love helping people. So my core value is helping people. I just do that to the softball world. So softball is second to me helping people. I just love helping. I love helping people carry the groceries. I love helping people cross the crosswalk. That is my core value. And then off of that, I just do that through softball now. But it always is back to helping and what can I do to help. So then once you identify with what your why is, the wins and losses will come, and your reactions and your responses to adverse and successful things are secondary to what your core value is. And it really keeps you balanced and aligned with how you interact with your players. And that's the most important thing anyways, right? So reconnecting with your purpose and why. For coaches, for sure, write your coaching philosophy and have it value-based. What do you value? And start it there and work out. But really taking the time for that, I think, is important, and something I personally have been hung up on now for the past month. And same thing for players. Write down what you miss about playing right now. Why do you love baseball? Why do you love softball so much? What is it? The teammates, the work, whatever it is, write those things down. And because your mission statements, your missions, your philosophy, your why helps you get through the challenges and successes of our sport. So if I had anything else, then I had one last thing to tell everybody, like, find your why. That would be for now. Yeah.
You know what, everybody on social media, I told you it was going to be an exciting show. Shaun did not disappoint. Another great one. And again, what you talked about the players writing things down. It'd be kind of cool also if they can videotape themselves saying it.
Oh, man, that's a great idea.
And I say that just because they can look at themselves. And I know this, when I was a young kid, I was real shy, and I still am. And I didn't know how to talk to people that well. And that may help kids understanding how to talk to somebody. They're not facing anybody yet. They're facing a video camera. I think that might be a little help there. So, hey, folks, this has been outstanding. Shaun, can't thank you, man. This has been great. Love it.
I tell you, our time together, Peter, it's been about an hour or so. It flies by. I mean, I'm thinking of this in the past, week or so, and I would do the show every week with you if you had me on, man. So thank you again, all the coaches and people that are listening to this. Keep pushing through. As coaches, you're extreme motivators for the people that look up to you. So the stronger you are, the stronger the people you impact will be also. So, Peter, thank you again for giving me a platform, and it's always fun. I always get better because of it too, selfishly.
That was definitely fun. That hour and 12 minutes went quick. Another great episode. Hey, folks, that's Shaun Larkin, coach, manager, Dodgers, assistant coordinator of skill development. Listen, just a fantastic show. I want to thank Shaun again. I want to thank our producer, Brian Kroc, Lineup Media Group. Check them out. Great shows on the Lineup Media Group. I want to especially thank, of course, all our listeners in the U.S. and around the world on Facebook, YouTube. We're going to place the show. I know we got cut off a little bit on Facebook. Apologize there, but we'll have the whole show on YouTube at Peter Caliendo, on audio at baseballoutside-the-box.com, and we'll go back on social media, the whole show, so you'll be able to see it on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, you name it, it's there. But thank you, folks, for being, for listening to the show, because you make our show, and without you, we wouldn't have a show. And we need you. We need you to spread the show everywhere to all levels, because you can tell it's just not about professionals. You can reach the youth levels, the independents, you name it, everywhere in the world. So thanks for listening to the show that loves to challenge the status quo, who loves to bring in some of the most, the smartest guys in the game of baseball. I'm your host, Pete Caliendo. We're going to see you on the next show. Adios. Ciao.